Okay, so let's get started, everybody. Hi, everyone. How are you? I hope that you guys are having a nice day. So, today's topic is turning resolutions into reality. Okay, so I want to start off today's session by wishing everyone a very happy new year. So happy 2024. I hope that 2024 is successful, happy, and healthy for everybody. Okay. And what we're going to talk about today is, sorry, Jocelyn, did you have a question?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Just to wish you a good new year.
Oh, thank you. That's very sweet. So, what I want to say is, as we get started, okay, we're going to talk about New Year's resolutions, which are very common in many countries and many cultures. And a lot of times they're focused on self-improvement, either be it professional or personal. Okay. So we're going to go through a few topics today. The first one is we're going to have a quick look at the history of the tradition, okay, and where it comes from. Then we're going to talk about some common resolutions and the biggest reasons why they fail. And then we're going to look at some strategies as to how to stay motivated and how to actually bring your resolutions to fruition. Okay. And then we're going to summarize everything at the end. And then, as usual, we'll have a 5-minute session of questions. Okay. So let's get started at looking at some of the history. Okay. So if you look at the history, okay, what's quite interesting is that it started about 4,000 years ago. Okay. So back in ancient Babylon, the Babylonians had an annual festival, okay, that was called, and my pronunciation might be wrong, but I think it was the Akitu festival. And what was interesting about this festival is they made promises to their gods, okay? And what they did was, a tradition was to pay back their debts. So if they owed money to people, they would try to pay it back by the end of the year. They would also, if they borrowed items like farming equipment, they would try to return that by the end of the year. And it was a symbolic way to cleanse the end of the year. And they believed that by doing so, it would bring good luck and good fortune for the coming year. So then we move on to ancient Rome. And in ancient Rome, what's quite interesting is that originally, right, the New Year corresponded with the vernal equinox, right, the winter equinox. But eventually, with some fudging of the calendar, it moved to January 1st. So what's interesting about the month of January, right, is that the month actually takes its name from the god Janus. Okay. Now, the Roman god Janus is actually a representation of change and transition and beginnings. So if you see an image of him, actually, he's depicted with 2 heads. Okay. So one head is facing back and the other is facing forward. And the significance of this is that one is looking back at the last year and sort of taking stock of and reflecting upon the last year, and then also looking forward to the future and considering what could be in the coming year. Okay. In medieval times, you had knights that would take something called a peacock vow. And this vow was their way to sort of reaffirm their commitment to chivalry. Now, in the 18th century, this became less about religion and more about a secular and personal commitment. but tradition obviously stayed because many people make New Year's resolutions, but don't always tend to keep them. So, obviously, it marks a moment of self-reflection, right? When we come into the new year and we contemplate and we think about what happened in the past year, what was successful, what was not, and we hope and we anticipate for things and aspire for things in the coming year, okay? So some very common resolutions are things like fitness and health. So, for example, people often say, I'm going to try to be healthier in this year, or I'm going to exercise more. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to sleep better. I'm going to stop smoking. Okay, so things like bad habits, our overall well-being. I'm going to do more yoga, for example. Career is a big one. So, for example, many people think about their professional development and say, but I'm going to learn a new skill this year, like learning English. Many other people think about personal development. For example, I'm going to try to read one book a month, or I'm going to try to learn how to meditate. Okay. These are all very common ways to think about what we want to do and how we want to enhance ourselves professionally and personally in the coming year. So, as we know, many of these resolutions fail. So, some of the 5 most common reasons that these resolutions fail are because, number 1, we have unrealistic goals. Okay. So that means that if you set an objective that's too ambitious or unrealistic, we're essentially setting ourselves up for failure. When our resolution lacks specificity, so you have something very vague and it lacks clarity, that is also setting us up and making it easier to fail, in fact. Then obviously there's external pressures. So if you're trying to be on a new healthy diet and you're going out with friends in restaurants and you fall to these pressures of, okay, well, maybe not tonight, that's also an easy way to lose our motivation. A lack of planning is another very common reason why we fail. So if we don't actually create a really good action plan, a detailed action plan, it makes it more difficult to stay on track. So also overlooking obstacles. So if we're too positive and we think that, oh, it's fine, I'll be able to achieve my goal and I'm not going to run into any issues, that also, it creates a situation where we get discouraged as soon as a small problem arises. So one very important thing, and this applies to any time that you're setting up a goal in your life, be it professional or personal, okay? When you set a goal, we should always make sure that it has this strict set of criteria. So we call it SMART goals. And SMART obviously stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Okay? So let's take a closer look at what each of these mean. So specific, obviously, you want to set a clear and defined goal. Okay? So instead of saying something vague like, I want to exercise more, you want to be specific and say, I'm going to commit 30 minutes every day to aerobic exercise, or 5 days a week, for example. Okay? Not just something, I'm going to exercise more. Okay? You want it to be measurable. So you want a tangible criteria to be able to track your progress. So for example, quantify your goal. So instead of saying something like, I want to eat more vegetables, okay, set something more quantifiable, like I want to have 5 servings of vegetables per day. Next, you have achievable, okay? So achievable means that it's something that's attainable or realistic, that we could reach, okay? It's very good to be ambitious in our goals, but if we set something that's too far out of reach, then we just end up being discouraged when we can't attain it. So, for example, I want to lose 10 pounds in 2 months may be more feasible than I want to lose 10 pounds in a week. Okay? Next, we have relevant. So, relevant means in French, pertinent. Okay? What it means is you want to have, instead of something very broad aspiration, you want to make sure that that goal comes back to what you want to do, like your main goal in the future. What are your values? Is it consistent with your beliefs and values? And the last one is time-bound. So you want to make sure that there's a very specific time, an end time, a defined time limit to when you set up your goal. So instead of saying, I want to learn Spanish this year, you might want to say to yourself, in the first 3 months, I want to learn how to have a very simple conversation. And in 6 months, I want to be able to hold a 10-minute conversation. Okay? So let's look at a roadmap to success. How do we get there? So as I mentioned, first we start with setting SMART goals. The next thing that you want to do to make sure that you actually keep your resolution is you want to create a detailed plan. So what do you do? To create a detailed plan, you want to actually break down each activity into a sub-activity, okay? So you want sort of these subtasks. So you say, okay, step 1, part 2, part 3, and in each of those parts, you have smaller subparts. This helps you keep important deadlines and make sure that you're on track. Next, you want to find support. So you want to share the goal with friends, with family, with a supportive community. Why we do this? For example, if you think about it, it's easier to get yourself motivated to go to the gym if you have a friend that's going to go with you. Or if, for example, you can call someone at the end of the day and say, hey, I learned 5 new words in this language. It keeps you accountable and responsible, and it helps you stay motivated. You want to stay motivated. So at some point, you want to celebrate the small victories that you have so that you feel like you're keeping on track, you're visualizing where you're going with this, and you're staying positive. So every time, don't wait to celebrate at the end. You want to celebrate the little wins. Like today I learned 10 new vocabulary words. Great. Overcome obstacles is number 5. So you want to identify potential obstacles. So for example, if you can envision that it might be difficult to stay on task with my goal because, for example, I'm going to get busy in this month and I know it's going to be more complex at that stage, you want to make sure that you think about that in advance. And you think, how am I going to deal with that issue so that when that comes up, you're ready for it and you're not discouraged. Number 6, you want to adjust and adapt your plan all the time. So you can't predict everything that's going to happen. So you can set up a goal that you want to go to the gym 5 times a day, 5 times a week during a week, but you might get sick, right? And you might not be able to go. So you need to be able to be flexible enough to look at where you are, look at where you've come, and say what's working and what isn't, and make adjustments at that point so you can stay focused on the task at hand without feeling like you failed. And the idea here is that you want to stay flexible. Number 7, you want to regularly reflect and assess. So you want to schedule regular sessions. You want to assess your process, sometimes maybe with your community, with your friends, with your teachers, so on and so forth. And you want to evaluate your achievements. How well am I doing? Do I need to adjust my goals? Was I too ambitious? Do I need to pull back my goals a little bit? Can I do more? Can I do less? Number 8, you want to celebrate your milestone. So whenever you reach an important milestone, you want to make sure that you acknowledge it, you celebrate it. This is going to reinforce the positive aspects, the positive mindset, and it's going to help you stay motivated. Number 9, you want to go for continuous improvement. So what that means is you reach one goal and then think positive and think, what's my next goal? What am I going to go after next? And that means also that maybe it's not just about thinking about goals, but it's having this mindset that you are constantly improving as a person, professionally and personally. And number 10, the final one, you want to inspire and set new goals. So sometimes that means sharing your success with your friends, your community, your coworkers, your families. What's nice and what makes us stay motivated and feel like we've done something great this year is saying, I was able to achieve this goal and this is what worked. And you can go back to your community or your friends or your coworkers and say to them, hey, I can help you. This is what worked. This is what I did. Try this. Or you can say, you know what? I tried this, but this didn't work. So ultimately, you set the goal, you help others, and then you go on and you set a new goal. And so maybe 2025 will bring a new resolution. So that brings us to the vocabulary. So I listed the vocabulary here that I thought you may or may not know. So you guys can have a look at that. And as usual, we've listed at the end some videos, some blogs, some articles to watch, some articles to read. So here you have one from the Cercle de Langue blog, some interesting information about the ancient New Year's Eve celebrations, some creative ways, creative New Year's resolutions, and an interesting video to watch on how to get motivated and how to stay motivated with our goals. So I will open it up to some questions. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, it was very, very interesting. But there was a lot of information to record. And I was wondering if we could have this presentation in PDF
Yes,
format, for
yes,
example.
yes. The presentation will be available to you. So you'll have everything that we did, including the vocabulary and the links to go to after.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good.
It was very, very interesting.
Good. I'm happy. I'm glad you liked it.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question, please. I don't know if this tradition is available in many other countries, like in France or in United States. Do you know if we can have this tradition in other countries too?
Well, I know I'm American, for example, and I know for sure it's a tradition in America to make a New Year's resolution every year. And it is generally a tradition that people don't often keep them. The reason we picked this topic is exactly for that, because people often think about what we're going to do, what's my goal for this year, but oftentimes we fail because of these reasons, right? Because it's either it's something we can't obtain, or we start well in January,
Yes.
right? And everyone's doing great in January and still in February. And then you start to slow down, and somewhere by June, you think, I'll do it next year.
And it's amazing because every year we restart our
exactly
at the same way. So even if we fail, we start again and again.
Exactly. So the idea is, we're proposing this idea. So let's try to do it a little differently this year. Let's be more specific with our goals and not be so vague, and really think, okay, this is exactly what I'm going to do. And this is going to be my action plan to get there.
Yeah, thank you, because you gave us a lot of clues. So maybe we will succeed this year. Next year, we will tell you if it's
I will check
okay or
in.
not.
Yes. I will check in with you guys next year. Any other questions? No?
Not for me. It's okay.
Okay. I went a little quickly because I ran.
Yeah, teacher. It is a conference is interesting, but could you speak a little French? It is good for me.
To speak a little slower?
You.
Maybe she wants you talking in French, but it's not the place. Maybe it's a C1 group.
Sorry, Houdin.
Yes, of course.
Yes, sir.
It's an English teacher, not French teacher.
Oui, j'ai essayé de dire une mot en français pour
Oui.
relevant, ça veut dire pertinente, mais le bout, c'est comme c'est le nouveau C1, C2, on voulait vraiment rester en anglais.
Okay.
Okay?
Very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, but I don't understand how we can get this presentation in PDF.
I believe that they email it after. But
yes,
let me double check with Francesco.
Yes.
With Francesco, I think that it gets emailed to the participants after.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
Is that it? Yes.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you very much. So
Great.
it's very,
So
very
I
nice.
hope to see you guys again soon. We have another conference in 2 weeks, I believe. And the next topic is going to be how to give a killer speech.
Oh, great.
And it will be with me.
Wow.
So
I need it.
Okay, so hopefully I will see you guys there. Okay?
Yeah.
For sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful January, the next couple of weeks, and I'll see you guys at the next conference, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Bye-bye. Have a nice
Bye-bye.
evening.
Bye.
Nice evening.